What's up, everybody? So, kind of a change of plans on Project Code Blue. I initially thought I was just going to be able to put quarters on the car and maybe do a trunk floor, a few little things like that, and then get back to the work of doing body work and all this other stuff. Well, as you can see, things are a little different now. So I started to get this filler panel in, as you saw in the last video, and this wasn't lining up right with the filler panel. I double and triple checked. Everything was measured right when putting this in. But the more I started looking at it, the more I started seeing some little small problems that may be causing some bigger problems. And before I got too far into it, I just wanted to investigate a little bit further. So I started cutting out some of the trunk floor and then the fender. And what I noticed, you can see all right here, this is rippled pretty bad. The trunk floor had been replaced. This part of the quarter, basically from here back, had been replaced. So we come inside the fender well here. Right behind the little bump stop, there is, let's see if I can get a light up here, a ripple right there. So it's kinked right there, and I think that's throwing the entire back half of the car. So when I come around to the trunk, there's this transition pan here. It's got a little ripple right here. It's kind of hard to tell, but I think this is dented up, and there's another ripple right through here and then right here. And this whole driver's side frame pan, or trunk pan, had been replaced. So what I'm going to end up doing is a whole lot more than I really anticipated. I'm going to cut this whole transition pan out, probably replace this left frame rail, the wheelhouse, brackets here, and see if I can get this whole thing to line up again. The upside is the passenger side should be pretty easy. So that looks all straight. I've crawled up under, measured the frame rail, everything looks perfect. So yeah, well, it went from being a pretty simple quarter and trunk floor, now it's turned into the whole back of the car getting replaced. So let's get to cutting.
I don't think Lee Iacocca and the Ford boys ever intended on this coming apart, because it was one of the most difficult projects that I've had to do in restoring a car. Any car. As you can see, so much of what was just finished had to be undone, and there's still more to come out. I've got new pieces on the way to replace all the rippled metal, but I've still got a lot to finish up. And suffice it to say, I'm tired of drilling out spot welds. But let's get on to taking out that transition pan and cleaning up the frame rail. Well, I'm kind of at a spot where I've got to do something I really didn't want to do. This panel here that sports the inner wheel house, I was going to try and get the transition pan out without having to remove it, but I don't think that I can get to all the spot welds underneath it. I think taking it off may actually give me some more room. So what I'm going to do first is drill a couple of small holes, maybe 2 or 3, just so I can get things lined back up, and then put some Cleco clamps in, like I showed you earlier, just to make sure that it goes back in the right spot. Alright y'all, we're awfully close to having this transition pan out. I do still have to cut a few things on the shock mount first, but it's getting close. But unfortunately, on the new transition pan, the shock mount is all welded in place, which means I'd have to cut every single one of these spot welds again before I can weld it in place, because the mounting tabs are on the inside here. So there's no way that I can get to them to weld them in place. Really don't like drilling spot welds on pretty metal.
Well, after a lot of cutting and grinding, and 194 spot welds later, and yes, I did count, I finally got the transition pan out. So, there it is. Completely empty. So I've got some work to do on the frame rails. Just got a few little nicks and dings in them, and I want to weld up and grind down first. Do need to still look at this driver's side frame rail. I'm not so sure that it's bent as much as it is just dented right here on the driver's side, because everything else looks pretty straight. So I may just take a whole lot of measurements and see if I can just bend that back out if everything else is in the proper alignment. So fingers crossed, that may be a huge thing that gets avoided. So next week is going to be a little bit different. We are going to be going to the Tri-State Swap Meet in Denver, Colorado. Going to look to pick up a few extra parts for the car, and we'll be covering the event. So it's like 3 floors, all indoor. It's kind of ridiculous. So we'll be doing that next week. So thanks for watching. If you like what you see here on this channel, please don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. And you can also hit the little bell to be notified of any upcoming videos. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.